Morrison, and I am here to establish that a drug dog sniff at a front door is not a search under the Fourth Amendment. Would the justices like a brief restatement of the facts that are applicable to this part of the case?
Very brief, 30 seconds.
Following the incident with Jacquemart, Officer Tran brought Randy and various other law enforcement agents to the home which was listed on the address that was found within the car. This is Saberwing's home. After 15 minutes of no activity within the home, Officer Tran brought Randy to sniff the walkway and the front porch. Randy alerted to the front door. From this alert, Officer Tran was able to get a search warrant, and the search of the house, they found marijuana growing within the house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I am going to establish that dog sniffs are both limited in scope and in what they reveal, and that it is part of the official conduct of a police officer to approach the front door, its legal behavior, and that yes.
I'd like to talk about the second point you're going to bring up, about that the officer was. You're saying the officer was legally on the property when he brought the dog?
Yes, the officer was legally on the property.
And what gives them the ability to be on that property legally if they have the dog with them? I understand that.
Are you talking about prior to the search, or?
Well, I understand that an officer may go up to the door to do a knock and chat or knock and talk, but and in this instance, the officer brought a drug sniffing dog, up to that door to specifically do a search. Is that outside of the reasonable expectation of privacy for a homeowner? Is it reasonable for a homeowner to think that anyone will be coming up to their door and performing a search with a drug sniffing dog?
I wouldn't say that it is reasonable for them to expect that anyone would be coming up and performing a search, but with a dog, that is reasonable. The search with the dog. Specifically, it was established in Jacobson, U.S. v. Jacobson, that police officers, that the quote is, official conduct that does not compromise any legitimate interest in privacy is not a Fourth Amendment search, and as the drug dog would only reveal the presence or absence of contraband.
Was Jacobson concerning a house, though? What was Jacobson concerning? What were they searching in that instance? Do you remember?
I do not remember that off the top of my head.
I don't think it was.
And the only reason I asked that question is I believe that there's a higher expectation of privacy within one's home. The Fourth Amendment. I mean, you have the right to go into your home and be out of the state's gaze.
To that, in the case U.S. v. Oliver, it was stated that the existence of a property right is but one element in determining whether expectations of privacy are legitimate. And I also believe that it's less about what is being searched than it is about the nature of the search. In the case Kylo, it wasn't the fact that it was a house that was being searched that meant that privacy was being violated. It was the method of searching, a thermal imager.
But in Kylo, they weren't on the curtilage of the property. The curtilage being the immediate area around a house, including the porch, which was searched in this case.
Yes, it was. But as I stated earlier, the police officer had probable cause for bringing the dog up to the house, conducting the search, and like any other member of the community, police officer is allowed to approach the door, and the dog was only going to search for contraband.
I agree that the police officer is allowed to approach the door. It's the police officer with the dog that is the problem. I don't think it's reasonable for someone to think that someone would come up to your house, police officer or not, with the intent of just to have the dog sniff for contraband.
Under Cabela's, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy to contraband, and that is true regardless of whether we're talking about a house.
If there's no reasonable expectation of contraband, why do you even need to get a warrant in the first place?
The warrant, the dog having the dog do the sniff contributed to the totality of the circumstances for probable cause of going into the house. It also finding the envelope in Jacquemart's car was another piece of evidence for obtaining the warrant. It was just a part of the puzzle that allowed them.
So you said that that people don't have a legitimate expectation of privacy in contraband, but I think that in the house it's a different matter. Like in Carroll v. United States, the police put a can or a tracking device in a can of ether, and it was inside a garage. And even though it only tracked the contraband and it only proved that there was contraband in the house, that was still ruled a search. So
Okay.
how do you think that conflicts with this? Because it seems to me like it's the same matter with the dog. Like, it may be inside the house, but in the words of like Kaido, like any intimate details inside the house are of the utmost importance and the greatest protection, Fourth Amendment protection.
I would just go back once again to Cabela's, which I think was decided more recently than Caro, where you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy to contraband. And as I said earlier, in the Oliver case,
you never, before you conduct a search, you don't know if there's going to be contraband present or not. So how can you justify that it's not being a search if it's the only way it's not a search is if there's contraband present? So if you think that there's contraband present, you search, there's no contraband, is it not illegal then? Or is it, I mean, where does that fall?
The probable cause, 2 minutes, with probable cause, can you clarify that question again?
Alright, so if you are saying that you don't have any reasonable expectation to privacy to contraband, I don't know if you have contraband or not. So if I conduct a search and I find contraband, then you're saying that it's not a search because you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy of contraband. But if I do not find the contraband, where does it fall in there? Because I feel like that is a search.
At that point, basically, in order to go ahead and do the search of Saberwing's house, they first had to have reason to go there, and they got that reason from the envelope in the car. So they had reason to believe that there was contraband in there, and that was why they conducted this search. You wouldn't really see a lot of people just going to random houses and conducting searches. I mean, with probable cause, you don't have to find evidence that...
So under your hypothetical that you just gave, would a police officer be allowed to take a dog and walk it down the street and sniff every single house, hoping that there might be contraband present?
A police officer would be allowed to do that, but it would almost definitely not happen. I mean, there was more that led into it. It wasn't just a random search, and probable cause does factor in. There's the totality of the circumstances, where it wasn't just, oh, he looked at this house and thought that there would be contraband present. He had reason to believe from the envelope that was found in the car, which was a legal search.
So are you drawing a distinction that there was probable cause before he even took the dog to the door to allow him to take the dog to the door to then obtain the search warrant?
There was enough of a reason for him to take the dog to the door, yes. I don't think that there was probable cause for the search warrant yet, but...
I just want to get back, so do you think we should overrule Kara then? Because that's what you said by saying that Cabetis was more recent and should take precedence. So are you saying that Kara should be overruled?
I'm saying that a dog sniff is sui generis, and it's of its own kind of, it's its own completely different type of search, so Cabela's is more relevant.
All right, thank you.
Well,